Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. There's breaking news.
Breaking news. Seems like Antony, the police investigation is still ongoing, but he is back available. He won't be available tomorrow because obviously he hasn't trained. But he'll be available next week. And it seems like, obviously for different reasons, we've had injury issues, we've had suspension issues, but slowly and slowly United's squad is getting stronger again. So like the main, obviously, premise of this video is mentioning the fact that Antony's returned, but I think we also got to like factor in and seeing the squad that United seemingly have. I did say a few weeks ago, even at the start of the season when everyone was signed, with everyone fit, United do have a very deep squad. The quality of the squad, floor and ceiling, that can be debated, but
still think we're lacking a striker, even though people are going to be like Antony Martial.
The squad's very deep.
I don't fucking trust him.
The squad's deep because I think United actually have 2 players for every single position. People can argue about the quality, but it's looking fairly deep, especially in midfield. But yeah, I'm going to read out what Romano said in terms of Antony and the fact that he has come back. Romano's put Antony back to training and available for selection. Manchester United's statement confirms. Since allegations were first made in June, Antony has cooperated with police inquiries in both Brazil and the UK, and he continues to do so. As Antony's employer, Manchester United has decided that he will resume training at Carrington and will be available for selection while police inquiries proceed. This will be kept under review pending further developments in the case. As a club, we condemn acts of violence and abuse. We recognise the importance of safeguarding all those involved in this situation and acknowledge the impact these allegations have on survivors of abuse. I know that Laurie said something as well.
Very interesting this, because it's almost as if the club has passed their own judgment on 2 players and come to different answers.
Serious? Oh yeah. They're a bit of double, but so what do you think it is?
I'm not going to give an opinion on innocence or guilt. I'm just going to say you have 2 players, same position, that have had investigations against them for what is seemingly identical sort of situations. One was
Domestic
suspended.
Violence,
yeah, I mean, yeah, you can argue about the fine details of it, but it's essentially the same thing. One player has been suspended, and the club has just looking on the outside and not comment on the specific innocence or guilt of either party involved there. The way that the club has handled these is different. So why is it different?
It's different because of obviously the evidence that was provided to the public for the Mason Greenwood case, and also the fan reaction. Because it did seem as though United were going to go down a route similar to Antony of saying that he's allowed to return, Greenwood's allowed to return and train. I think it's fairly obvious that was what was going to happen. And then United gauged like the fan reaction to that possibly happening and then did a U-turn. That is basically what's happened. I think United...
Right. John says one was charged, one wasn't. That's the big difference. I thought he had been charged, Antony.
He says people are saying he was arrested but not charged. Could find out the details.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Okay, if that's the case, then that potentially is the case, and that would make a bit more sense.
Yeah. So Antony wasn't charged. So that's the difference.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I can accept that, because you go, well, the club has followed on from what the police have done, but I didn't know that. So I was looking at this and from the outside saying there's been a couple of accusations here.
Yeah.
To me, they're both as serious as each other. Yet one person's been treated this way and the other person's been treated this way. You know, I wasn't casting any aspersions onto maybe why that is, and some people in the comments are saying, "Oh, it's the one Ten Hag signed." And you know, sometimes a manager can treat his own signings a little bit differently. But I actually don't think. I mean, if you read between the lines, it sounded like Ten Hag wanted Greenwood back regardless anyway. So I don't think you can necessarily say either of these was a Ten Hag decision. I think these have all been club and club board decision.
Yeah, exactly. I know what IQ and say. We're not going to go into that whole game. Obviously, it said Partey charged and arrested. You know, people are talking about differences where different clubs have done different things. If you're talking about ours, obviously, when you're getting into those things with legality, seemingly, if you talk about the way that the clubs reacted, obviously the Greenwood one was different, the Antony one was different, but the outcome has been Greenwood's on loan. He's still
a United player.
Still a United player. Can I have your opinions on that? And Antony is obviously allowed to be back in training. He's returned, and he seemed very voluntary in terms of the way that he interacted with the police, etc. But now that he has come back, it's still under investigation, so we don't know what's going to happen going forward.
Like the club has said, it's constantly under review. I imagine, should he now be charged, then that review process is back on the fucking naughty step.
Yeah, okay.
Surely.
But it's just like, even though this is news of a player returning to the squad and Bolton, it's just another statement from United, isn't it? Like,
I mean, could we go a week without a statement?
Statements,
I don't think
issues.
So. Akil, has said this again. I don't know if this is the truth or if this is just a comment. I'm just reading it. He says he went for an interview at Manchester Police Station yesterday, but has not been charged for anything. One of the 3 girls has already dropped the charges already. Right.
Yeah, so it is different, but we have to see what the outcome's going to be. Obviously, they've made a decision now where...
Is he in the squad tomorrow?
He's not in the squad for tomorrow, but he's available.
I have to redo my preview then.
He's available next week, but obviously he can't just come back in. And he's not trained for a couple of weeks. He's basically been on... Was it a suspension or was it... Who knows these days at Manchester United? But he's not back now. I feel like he'll be training probably from tomorrow. He'll probably do a little bit of running while the lads play. He'll get a full week of training next week. He might be available for Galatasaray, probably on the bench. But as I said, it makes the squad stronger because we've seen how much stronger the midfield's got. Obviously, you got Kobe Mainoo coming back within the next couple of weeks as well. And if you look at it, if you can run through every single position, United have got 2, at least 2. You can argue about the quality, but
I mean, I definitely would choose to argue about the quality as well. But yeah, you're right. We are on the basis of things. Suddenly, with injuries coming back and with suspensions lifted, and I mean, the Mason case is an interesting one because that really would put the cat amongst the pigeons if he did come back in January, because of the quality that he possesses. Does that add an extra layer to the strike and the right wing position? And I get the impression, like... I'm
not sure he ever
for anyone who's sitting here going, as if you're
back.
defending Mason Greenwood coming back, like, I'm not. Please understand the meaning of words.
The Verger opinions on that. Constantly,
they have, but there's still people in the comments right now who will mishear what I've said because that's what people do. I saw who was the interview I saw yesterday? I saw a Troy Dean interview yesterday where he says, am I a better player than Harry Kane? No, I'm not. But is he a better header of the ball than me? No, I don't think he is. And does he work harder than I do? No, I don't think he does. And he goes, and people will take what I've said out of context. And then literally, I saw a guy on Twitter has gone, as if Troy Deeney thinks he's better than Harry Kane. I'm like, you've literally done what you said in the video there. What are you showing me?
Nice. I'm not showing you anything.
Right.
I was just on there. But I would argue Troy Deeney, though. Kane is really good in the air. I think he's thought, Troy Deeney's thinking, my strongest attribute is heading. So if I'm going to match myself up against the best striker in the world, I'm just going to say that my strongest attribute is better than his. Because it's not even like it's a weak... The work hard one, yeah, I get, but it's not like a weak attribute of Kane's. Kane's kind of excels in that area too.
But the point is...
Yeah, but the point
being
is...
taken out of context. Because he definitely took him out of context. Ben says, looking forward to seeing Kobe again. Yeah, not the only one.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to provide another element. Do you know what? Because if you do look at it, I was saying 2 players for every position. Then I thought right wing would have been Antony and Sancho. Well, I don't think Sancho was going to play again. So it'd probably be Antony and Palestri.
I said on the podcast after the bar yesterday, I genuinely think there's more chance of him playing for Paddock than there is playing for United. Which is mad that he's a United player. But I think he's, without the apology, and it doesn't seem like the apology is coming, I think his agency have got a real job on their hands at the moment. Like a player agency is not just there to take 15% of your cash and keep it moving, and they're not there just to put PR and spin out for you.
Yeah,
I would expect a good agency has read him the riot act themselves and gone, "Oi, stop fucking about Get your ass down to training. Be the first in the building.
Actually, I think that what's concerned me with worrying about who kind of is the agent or the people that are around entourage Jadon is because he can feel like he's hard done by, but he also needs to take a little bit of responsibility for his own actions in terms of being lateness, etc., and the consequences that come with that. I think the reaction that's happened, I don't feel like it's massively Sancho's personality. I think it's the people around him, and it is his agents. And that's worrying because he's a 23-year-old, meant to be ascending winger on the most lucrative contract of his life, probably the most lucrative that he will get. These disparaging things that are coming out about him now, about his character, his attitude, the way he applies himself, that can have a huge effect on the rest of his career when he does leave United. And I'm thinking, if you're an agent, if you're an agent, aren't you meant to be protecting your player's image and rights? I think with what's come out about him and the way that he's responded to it, now all the biggest clubs in the world are not really going to be less inclined to touch him. And the only way that he can go is down. Mm-hmm. And then when he does go down, he's not going to be getting 350 grand a week again, I don't reckon. So
what are you doing? Are you retiring? You're either going to have to sign a contract with someone for probably less than a third of what you're getting paid right now.
Because I think Dortmund don't give those types of wages, and that's the one that interested.
They'll be like, do you remember that contract that we give you when you were 17 and you weren't getting the City team? We got another one of them with different dates on. Exactly,
because both parties lose their leverage. So United lose their leverage as well in terms of transferring him, in terms of how much they can demand financially.
We're getting less than 50, might be less than 40.
I think it's less than 40 because the other part of the rat that United can't sell people for decent amounts is the wages that their players are on. So Sancho's on 350 grand a week. That's going to make his transfer fee even a lot lower because other teams aren't going to be able to.
There was a United player that I spoke to as well that was telling me that it isn't just that United pay really good wages, but your status going from being a West Brom footballer, a Leicester footballer, now being a Manchester United footballer means that now your boot deal's worth more, means that your hair product deal is worth more, means that your whatever is all worth more. So it's not just that, I'm on 100 grand a week playing for United. So I've gone up, let's say he's on 50 grand a week at Leicester and you go up to 100 grand a week at United. You're not just getting 50 grand a week more because that boot deal where you got 10 grand a week from Nike is now 100 grand from Nike. So you're thinking, it's not necessarily just the United wage that I'm losing. I'm going to lose some fat stacks from my sponsorships here as well. And you're right, that is why United struggle to move players on. Because people go, no, me being here and not playing is better than me going there and playing, actually, because of the amount of cash I'm on.
Do you reckon it is a chance that if he does leave, it's most likely Saudi? A lot of people feel like we won't sell him.
I think there's 4 possible destinations. I don't think the Premier League is one of them. Although Chelsea are always on a madness, so that there's
Spurs.
Nah. You think Ange Postecoglou's just got this team working like they're on triple overtime?
It's mad because they've just spent nearly 50 million on Brennan Johnson, Forest. He was decent against Arsenal though. He was sharp. But so it's like they've formulated a culture there where everyone's buying in and that. I think the whole attitude issue is to do with Sancho that's being kind of put out into the public, and then Dortmund have jumped on it lately. I don't think Dortmund have actually jumped on. I think what's happened is it's come out with how he's behaved at United, and then journalists have all rushed towards Dortmund and said, what was he like when he was there? That's definitely what's happened, isn't it? And then they've come out and said, yeah, he was a bit of a nightmare, but we let him do it because of his output.
The numbers were all-time great numbers that he were putting up at Dortmund. Like, I'm not having the revisionism that I've seen out there. Like, he was shit at Dortmund as well. Like, no, he fucking clearly wasn't. When I said this yesterday too, the player that we signed, his stock was Bellingham right now. When we signed him, that's where he was. It was, holy fucking shit, what a player we've just signed. Now, this attitude stuff wasn't a factor. This wasn't in the press. It wasn't in the media. And I think his agency have got such a task on their hands. Like, if he's on 350 a week, they're on 50 a week. Like, how about you start earning your 50 a week? How about let's say I've just been put in charge of that agency, right? For some fucking bananas reason, the guy decided to up and leave and I've just been chosen to be in charge of that agency. I'm bringing the player in. I'm going, right, give me your version of events. And I'm going to listen to him. Then I'm going to speak to the club because I am a massive asset, or I look after a massive asset for that club. If I'm the agent, I probably can get a meeting with Ten Hag. And I go, okay, I spoke to him. You tell me what's happened. And then I'll use my judgment to figure out who's overcooking it one side and who's overcooking it the other side. And I'll come up to be like, right, okay, I do think you're probably favouring Antony a touch, and that's why he's seen his ass. But also he can't be late for training. Then I'm going to grip him. I'm going to go, right, here's what's happening. You're getting picked up from your house. I've got a driver picking you up from your house every fucking morning, and I'm giving him a key for your house. So he's dragging your ass out of bed, and you will be the first in that building, and you will be the last person to leave that building because you're with a driver. You're not even in your own car. So you are going to be first in there. You're going to be the last out of there. And for the next 4 weeks, you are not going to do anything. Like, I'm taking your fucking PlayStation controller. Like, why are you out on here on PlayStation? See, everyone's seen you while your team's playing. Like, the fans are the biggest factor in what happens with your career. If the fans are having you and they're protecting you, you can get away with murder. If the fans aren't having you, even if you're good, they can make that a nightmare. So even if he comes into the team now, there's going to be loads of people who are going, nah, this fucking guy was playing fucking FIFA while we were playing against Munich, losing. Like, he's got to repair that first and foremost because the fans will make or break you. So he needs to come out, apologise to the manager, he needs to apologise to the fans, and he needs to go in monk mode for about 5 or 6 weeks where he is first in, last out, and he is just putting up mileage in training and be undeniable. And that's what a good agency's got to do. They're going to go, hey, guess what? You're not flying to New York this weekend. You're going fucking Carrington, and we've got you a coach. You're doing one-to-ones. We've got RH down. You're doing fucking little shuttles with him. Like, you've got to go and be unfucking deniable because the next 6 months of Jadon Sancho's career will literally decide whether he's going to be playing for fucking Brentford Rejects or Real Madrid. Like, he has got no other options on the table to him. He's not going to find another Premier League club unless it's Chelsea, and they might not be a Premier League club for very long. You've got potentially Barcelona because they're just run by maniacs, right? So they might just decide it like, fuck it.
Because Barcelona was the team that was basically second in the running for Jadon. Yeah. If it wasn't us, he would have probably gone there. Yeah. I actually know that for a fact. But
so he might get a tug at Barcelona. I think there's a possibility of him going Italy because I just think there's a chance that they offer him a bit of European football or this, that and the other. And I think Dortmund is probably a potential, and I think Saudi's realistic, especially for the wage. But this is on him now. Like, this is entirely down to Sancho. He can be a dick right now, and he can keep refusing to apologise, and he can keep training with under-18s. But is that fair? Like, when you have one knobhead in a training session, it can really derail your training session. So if he's turning up late, if he's refusing to apologise and he's seen his arse at being put in under-18s, do you think you're getting a 10 out of 10 training session with him, innit? Nah, chance.
Probably not. But so you look at it now, if you're looking at right-wing options, we just talked about Antony, we talked about Jadon Sancho. So Antony does return now, and we were talking about the kind of the depth and what this kind of means for us in terms of having an out-and-out left-footed, like balanced kind of ball retention winger there. But even before this leave of absence that he had with these issues, his performances were extremely underwhelming so far to start the season.
Inconsistent.
And very inconsistent. So we've spoken about Sancho, obviously being on the hot seat for different reasons. I feel like even Antony comes back as much of a good point it is to not have like an £80 million asset, just having a mutual leave of absence for whatever he's on outside of football. What do we need to see from him? Because United haven't looked like miles like better or worse without him, but I think a lot of people saw
with Antony,
but without him. But like, if I'm referring to the Palace game in midweek, where if people looked at the starting 11, there was a little bit of concern, thinking everyone would go into it when they saw the starting 11, right? From the Twitter said it doesn't look extremely like filled with lucrative talent in terms of when you looked at starting 11 of Palace, but it looked very exciting. So people didn't know what to expect, but people were kind of intrigued to see how it worked out. And then United put in one of their more high tempo, energetic, dynamic performances all around the pitch. And I think a lot of fans want to kind of stick with that dynamic a little bit. And I don't know whether Antony kind of fits into that, but he's also he's
not a low tempo player though. I think he's high tempo.
It's
I
more,
just think he's
I don't know if he
shooting. It's so obvious what he's going to do, and it's so low percentage what he does. It reminds me of Nani a little bit, but Nani probably had a better fucking success rate with it, and I found him so frustrating at the time.
I think Nani's better than Antony.
But you see what I'm saying?
But I'm biased.
I'm
a Nani guy.
He comes in off the wing, and unloads one. And when they're
you know why
rocket,
you know why you
they're
can't,
a rocket.
do you know why you can't compare him?
Goal.
You can't compare Antony because Antony is like extremely one-footed, and Nani was very two-footed.
It was more
So
the cutting in from the wing to have a shot, and most of the time that shot getting slung over the bar, right?
Yeah.
And then you get the occasional one like that Middlesbrough goal where you just head in hands. Oh my fucking god, what have I just seen? But most of the time, someone's got to go fish it out of Rose Head.
Yeah.
Right? That's mostly what happens with it, and that's the case with Antony. And I don't mind that as long as actually when you're coming inside, if there's other runners, if you've got an overlap from a fullback, if there's a nice little near post run from somebody else, if there's maybe someone's pulled off a little bit of space around a penalty spot, if you're actually sliding those in 2 out of 3 times and then unloading one, no one's going to have a problem with that.
People are mentioning quite a thing that now we've got Højlund now. Antony's not played with him. Antony's expected assists and his assists last season were horrendous anyway. He's very much the ilk of what Steve's saying of cutting, I'm Iron Robin, I'm going to shoot every single time. I think with Højlund, a lot of people have complained that there's a lot of times where he could have been played in and linked up with from Rashford, who's similar. He's very more eye for goal than a creative player, and he's very direct. And Andy's not shown the ability to be cut in and cross very well either. So will he change his game a little bit to kind of accompany Højlund? Because it's all well and good having a striker, but
I think he should. Yeah, if you've got a striker, and he's a big lad that's got a bit of box presence about him as well, and you play with 2 selfish wingers, what's the point in having that striker? It's like Firmino worked at Liverpool as this defensive forward, as a playmaking forward, who wasn't relied on to do your goal a game stuff because you had Mane and you had Salah that was delivering you those numbers.
yeah.
So it's almost like a weird 4-4-2 sort of hybrid that Liverpool were kind of playing. And Firmino was essentially part of the midfield, and he was there to do a bit of counter pressing and stuff like that. So United with Antony and Rashford, even though they're different in the way they execute the game and they're different in ability, the mould that they're in as those selfish forwards is your Mane and your Salah, that they're coming in for themselves mainly. That's the primary kind of function. But then if you've got a striker that's reliant on some goals, who's going to create those opportunities for him? So
he might change his style a bit then.
He might.
We'll have to see. Someone's asked me, Jordan, someone says, Ronaldo, if I'm not mistaken, you came from Liverpool Youth Academy. Just curious, how did you become a United fan? I was always a United fan.
United fan at Liverpool
I
Academy.
just went to
How
play
awkward was that
Academy.
sometimes?
No, it was very, like me and George went through it. Me and George Johnston were both United fans that played. I'm both Manx.
Is Oki the year below you?
Yeah.
And he's a United fan as well.
Yeah.
And he's a bit louder than you.
And
as well.
Darius was.
I bet he got some shit for it.
Yeah, Darius was a couple years above me from Hume, and he was a United fan at Liverpool as well. And they were the Liverpool, the academy, and the kind of the staff and whatever. They were very much how you expect. They couldn't be any more anti-United if they tried, especially back then. So they didn't hide it. They Scousers and Liverpool. They hated Manx, they hated Manchester, they hated United, and they didn't hide it. Just what you expected, really. So it was tough. But I'm not going to lie, but you have to be quite tough, though, growing up around, or being around Scousers quite a lot when you're not Scouse. They are a different breed, especially with the banner.
There was a lad that I went to school with that, he was at Everton. He was at Everton coming through with Rooney, because Rooney was getting played up, as you can imagine, because the guy was fucking 30 years old at 16. So he was in the same sort of team as him, and he hated it. He's a City fan, and he was like, these fucking Scousers just don't pass to me.
Yeah. They are different.
We are sponsored today by somebody, and it's one that I haven't really introduced too much on my channel, so check this out.
The raised eyebrow.
Anytime you like. Little bit of an announcement then for you guys. Tentrade and my channel are going to be working together. You might have already seen them working with the football team. That was a vote that was passed by all the members. And if you think I've lost the plot, why am I working with a trading company? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I like what they're about. And it's about education, finance, and all that sort of stuff we don't know enough about. And I think that there's a massive lack of education, and I think that allows some people to take advantage at times. So I'm all about educating people. I'm all about people finding their own way, and Tentrade have got the ability to do that. They've got something called Ten Academy. They've laid everything out. It's the basics to the nitty-gritty details. They've got courses, expert sessions, guides, you name it, they've got it. Whether you're just peeking around the door or whether you really want to dive into the deep waters and figure trading out, there's definitely something for everybody. If you're interested, then check the link out below and start a bit of an educational journey today. We're back.
We're back.
We're back. Mic's on? Alrighty, sweet. Righty then. So that is Tentrade. We will be talking about that a little bit more in what?
Guy at the bottom, just that fucking idiot, bro.
We will be talking about Tentrade a little bit more in some other content that is coming your way as well. But I'm interested to get started in this sort of stuff because it's something that you've been well aware of, but never really dipped my toe in because I feel like the learning curve is enormous. But actually finding somewhere that there's a course to go and do, and the beauty of Tentrade being involved with Stretford Paddock as well is. It is a democratic football club, and we put this to the members, and it was near unanimous in terms of passing them through as this season's sponsor with the team. But it's a kit you're not wearing this weekend, isn't it?
Nah.
Why is that?
Because I got set off.
Why?
For gripping someone up.
We've had 3 games and 3 red cards, lads.
Do you know what? It's not an anomaly for me. I feel like I've had about 5 or 6 red cards in my lifetime. Do you know what I mean? It's not like out of character. I think you can't play this game if you ain't got a little bit of grit about you, no matter what you like off the pitch.
I tend to agree with that. And I think one of the things with us is we've been a bit soft in recent years. And I don't think we're soft this season. And I think people are finding out and are worried. I think most of we could always outplay everyone we come up against, but we didn't always outfight everyone that we came up against. We didn't always outwork everyone that we came up against. And I think that's changing slightly. Well, changing very much so, actually. We've added a little bit of grit. So it's interesting. Got a tough game tomorrow.
Yeah. It will be tough. I hope he's win. I won't be involved, obviously. I got sent off, but I'll be on the watch along though.
Oh, you're on the watch along?
Yeah, against Palace again. Palace 2.0. Is Ronnie Steve's done? Your creepy uncle.
100%.
Something like that. Careful now.
Says Johnny Evans at right wing. I was thinking about picking Johnny Evans, not at right wing, but I was thinking about picking him. But I ended up going with Delola, Lindelof, Varane, Amrabat as my back 4. Yeah. But I wouldn't actually be surprised to see Johnny Evans because he looked pretty good, but maybe wouldn't.
And obviously you had Maguire had a decent game, but we had really nothing to do. But he had a decent game in a week as well. Someone said something about the slagging off United on TalkSport this morning. That's every morning. That's every morning, by the way. I think we've already spoken about that. But also, up there I wanted to speak about, someone said that without Antony we're worse. I don't know if that's the case.
Without any right wing we're worse. But like...
What would be your... Right, so can I ask you, what would be your strongest starting 11 for United with everyone fit?
I would... I think United are in a place where we still have to try to tailor our 11 to the team. I think there's something really interesting going on with the 3-2 build-up, with Amrabat being left back. We saw Luke Shaw try and do it at the start of the season and just kind of look a little bit like he didn't fully... He was a bit rigid and didn't fully seem like he understood why he was going into the places he was going. Whereas I think Amrabat actually just took to it like a duck to water. I've been here all day, don't worry about this. Now, there's a trade-off with this. You play Amrabat, particularly against Palace, like 1v1, that's not going to be a good time.
But I think it's a similar build-up system that Arsenal use with Zinchenko. Because whatever you want to say about Zinchenko being starting left-back for Arsenal,
yeah, you got a point.
He's not a good defender. He's lightweight. He's slow. The thing is, he gets away with it because for all of Gabriel's faults that he does have, he's a bit of an athletic monster. So he covers that whole That's why he plays that whole left side channel behind Zinchenko when he leaves, and then
because Zinchenko gets involved in playmaking.
He doesn't have to do much. If you watch Zinchenko play, he doesn't have to do much defending. Because obviously they control the ball a lot, which helps as well. But he doesn't. And when the times that he does have to defend, he gets exposed, especially against decent wingers. I think.
So you think actually Amrabat? See, I can't imagine that we wanted Amrabat to play like.
No, he doesn't. But I feel like it's a job that he will have to fill. We've got to remember when everyone was fit, we saw Ten Hag do this in pre-season with Kobe Mainoo. He started Kobe Mainoo right back against Arsenal, didn't he?
True, yeah.
As the inverted midfielder.
So is he really trying to go down this 3-2 build up? What that moves somebody in alongside Casemiro, whether that's a Mainoo from the right or an Amrabat from the left, but someone sits in alongside. And actually, like I did talk about this morning, but it does give you the opportunity then to have Mount and Bruno in the same team. Now, I don't think they've quite worked the kinks out in terms of how that matches up. They're in the same spaces a little bit at times, but that might come with reps. In terms of like Mount's the one that maybe drops and comes and collects the ball a little bit deeper, which I think he's excellent at, and we saw some really good switches of play from him as well.
Yeah.
He actually ended up in loads of positions, and maybe that fluidity is what he's going to bring.
He ended up everywhere.
He was right wing, he was in the D.
But he was allowed to do that when you control the game so much, though.
But is that what we've not had this season? United haven't controlled the games at all. Like, we were far too open and transitional against Wolves. Forest are going to come and play that way that they're not going to let you kind of do that. We haven't really dominated the ball in a way that Arsenal and City have done.
Yeah.
So maybe we just haven't been what we thought we would be. And maybe a little bit of that was not having a focal point in a striker. You know, Marcus playing down the middle, you're looking for him to chase stuff, not hold stuff.
He's not.
So it's like, I wonder has Ten Hag actually played a fucking blinder here, but just really had to limp through the first 5-6 weeks of the season?
And it was because everyone was kind of criticising, and a lot of people said that they don't think Amrabat would succeed. The thing is, what makes Amrabat intriguing is I think he borderline is a utility player, because a utility player isn't always just about the positions that you're playing. It's not a utility player isn't just someone that can play, or because he plays right back and midfield is a utility player. It's people that almost have diverse like profiles, so they don't just have one. They can have more than one. Obviously, they can have two, because that's what Amrabat has. Because I want to explain so people don't think I'm just waffling. Amrabat had a completely different role for Morocco than he had for Fiorentina, and he did both of them extremely well. Yeah. So if you look at that, you should be thinking that's a player that anyone would want, because for Morocco, because he was surrounded by such technical, elegant, like flary players, he was told just be the heartbeat, be the destroyer, sweep up, and he did that well. But Fiorentina, he was basically the opposite. That's why his FBref stats for Fiorentina weren't good defensively, because that wasn't his job. His job was to dictate play, be the single pivot, be good on the ball.
I like his attitude.
He showed
radiates attitude.
He showed that he did the whole like running. He was strong. He's strong in the duels as well. Yeah.
So. I really like it. I think like in one game, same with Martinez again was it Rayo Vallecano or Bilbao, whatever the fuck it was in that friendly at Old Trafford last year. You go, oh yeah, there's a cult hero here. One game, Amrabat in the United shirt. You go, yep, yeah, I'm all aboard.
Cool. Everything he did, they're cheering it.
Yeah,
I could tell the United players. I don't know whether the United fans obviously take to players more because we didn't really pay for him or didn't pay much for him, and he just kind of has that.
No, it don't matter.
Yeah,
I don't think the connection to fan base matters in terms of like whether you pay a lot for someone or you pay a little for someone.
But fans just know. I think fans just know who the cult hero is. They just like almost feel it.
There's some people like Solskjaer had that connection to the fans immediately. His attitude was flawless. Yeah, it's like you're gonna be on the bench, and he's like, all right, well, I'm the best fucking sub you've ever seen. Like you see Ander Herrera. You're like, we're going to ask you to start doing mad jobs. Like, the guy came as a number 10 playmaker from Bilbao, and they were like, yeah, you're not going to do that here. You're going to be a bit of an 8 and a bit of a shithouse. And he was like, sweet, get me that hat. like the job that he did on Eden Hazard that time was just fucking one of the best man-marking jobs that the world has ever seen. Like, Ander Herrera would have... I bet Eden Hazard was like getting into his car at shopping centres and still looking around to see fucking
how is he here?
Ander Herrera's just fucking lurking around somewhere.
Sleeping with one eye open.
So like, there's been loads of players who can come and be a cult hero, and the connection to the fans is getting it. But it starts with performance. Can't be a cult hero and be shit. Don't work like that. You got to still be good.
Yeah, you got to
start with being good. the attitude comes next. And then if you've got the right attitude and you're good, the fans will connect to you. Cantona had a bit of that as well. Like, his attitude was mint. He just wanted to win, and he wanted to be a club that wanted to win. And he said, the reason why he connected to Alex Ferguson so much is because never did Alex Ferguson do a team talk where he spoke about the opposition more than us. He was like, no, this is who we are, and this is what we're going to do.
And we'll play. Win. If we play our best, we should win. But I feel like it's no coincidence that with Amrabat starting, offering a bit more support to Casemiro had his best game this season.
Yeah. Well, we said, don't we? Like, you're asking Casemiro to cover like two sides of a pitch. It felt like Mount didn't quite fully know his job, and maybe his job wasn't on the defensive transition to kind of be alongside Casemiro. And I think when you build up in that 3-2, but you allow Amrabat to invert and kind of take up half of the pitch. So he's like, well, I'll cover that sort of left half on a transition. Casemiro now only has to cover half as much ground as he had to cover before. He can do that all day long. Oh, I'm fucking excited for how this is going to pan out.
I think there's only one missing kink in this system, though. I think the one missing kink in this system is the right back area, because with this 3-2 build that you're talking about, with Lisandro Martinez basically being a left centre half / left back covering that side, I think that suits him down to the ground.
Agree.
But on the other side, it being the lower Wan-Bissaka,
probably.
I don't think they have enough CB attributes, whereas Arsenal have.
And is that why we went hard for Pavard?
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine
that's exactly
what we've seen, and you go Pavard, Varane, Martinez, Amrabat, Casemiro, Mount, Bruno, and you start
bang on.
Fucking hell!
Tonight's got a picture up, because obviously who's Arsenal's right back?
Yeah, Ben White.
He's a right back centre half hybrid. Do you know what I mean? So, and the reason is that when
and
it becomes a
midfielder.
Yeah, so when it does free build up, it's almost like free centre halves, and it makes the balance is there.
And then you look at Pep's doing a similar thing. He's basically got about 19 centre halves. I can see what Ten Hag's trying to create. Yeah. We just haven't had the rubber to green in terms of look in multiple different areas. We haven't had the rubber to green in terms of VAR. You fucks. Like, we haven't had, there's just things, the bounce has gone wrong for United all year this year in every sense. If we can go a week without a statement and a week without an injury, like, we might start to put, and we've got a favourable run of games where even like Galatasaray's at home, and like, you've got a bit of a, do you know what, we could get a bit of momentum going here. And then, you haven't got the likes of Bayern and that and City till late next month, I don't think. When you might get a little bit of a head of steam up about it, and the time to get a little bit of confidence. Jed says, controversial opinion, buy Reguilon and sell Schuller. I mean, what happens when Reguilon comes back? Could we go back to a 4-2-3-1? You move Amrabat in there, maybe Mount drops out of the team.
I think this is why you said on 5 things after the Palace game. That's why you said selection headache, because I think with everyone fit and then everyone playing well, I think Ten Hag's going to have a number of different options, a number of different ways he can play, a number of different systems, and he's going to have a lot of players to fit in. And I don't think there's a lot of players that are surefire. Do you know what I mean? There's no surefire you start apart from. There's a few, but there's not like loads of them.
But you want a squad that's flexible, and you want a squad that goes, actually today we're going to do this, because one of the worst things in the world is predictability. When any team comes to town and they go, I'll tell you the 11 and I'll get 11 out of 11. Like, that's no good. You don't want the opposition gauging like exactly how you're going to play. And if you've got the potential to go, actually today we're going to have Reguilon and he's going to raid down in that left wing space, and he's going to overload on that side, sweet, and that's a potential. Or actually Amrabat, and he's going to invert, come into the half space, help protect, be a bit more effective on the transition for us. You as an opposition now have got almost two totally opposite ways that we can field just one position at left back, and then that's going to impact what you do to try and prevent what we do. So you've got then no idea how we're going to line up, but we've got two effective ways of playing just with that one position. And then you start extrapolating that across some of the other areas of the pitch. Right wing, you might be able to play Mount, you might be able to play Bruno, you might be able to play Antony. So now you can't give your left back a definitive answer about what to do with who you're playing against, because all three of those players are going to play that position 3 different ways. So you can't just go, here's what they're going to do, and here's how we're going to stop it. So you kind of have to like give them a 25% of this is what they might do, and this is what they might do, and this is what they might do, and that's where you can be a bit effective with it. Like, I'm looking at January now and going, I don't think the ownership situation gets resolved, unfortunately, but let's say it did. Let's be positive for a minute and say, actually, we'll get the ownership situation resolved and we'll sell Maguire and we'll sell Sancho, and you don't even need massive money signings, but you go, do you know what? Sell Sancho and Maguire, you might get 60 million. Fuck it. Sell Sancho, Maguire, McTominay and Donny van der Beek, you get 100 million to play with. Because they're lads that aren't going to be any use to the squad right now whatsoever. And you go, all right, well, with that 100 million, I'm going to get Pavard. I'm going to go and bring in a striker that does something totally different to what Højlund and Martial does. And I'm going to bring in maybe someone for the right wing, even as a backup or a backup side centre-half. Fuck me, then the squad really starts to look... Or you could use Pavard as that centre-half, I guess. But now you start to go, okay. Now maybe the squad doesn't quite have the experience of going winning titles, and that's the one thing that this squad lacks as a togetherness, because obviously there's players all over the place that have won things previously, but not here. You know, Mount's won stuff, Casemiro's won stuff, Varane's won stuff, Martinez won stuff, but they've not won it here. So then you just need to let them cook a little bit and start winning stuff here. But you can start seeing what's happening. You can start seeing what. So why did we want Pavard? Fuck me, does it not look? It's like
obvious
it's
now.
It's in neon. Why we wanted him now? Nice. Okay. What else are we looking for? Who else did we were kind of linked with that we didn't get? I'm trying to think in forward sense. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
We wanted Todibo in at the centre half as well. I think there's not many forwards. I think Højlund. I think Kane was the obvious one. Højlund. I don't think we was linked to any wingers. Yeah, I know how Pavard's gone to Inter. I already knew that. But
Pavard rather than.
Do you know what I mean?
Is he on loan or has he gone permanent?
No, he's gone permanent. He was for like 30 mil.
Boo.
Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, we're not sitting here saying Pavard's coming in January. We know he's gone to Inter.
No, we're talking about what.
We're just being perspective in it, just like being theoretical.
Yeah, it's easier to say getting a Pavard than it is getting a right back / right side centre half hybrid player that's got phenomenal progression stats.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're looking at, innit? And those players are out there.
Nah, you get me? Like, I think there's a few, but I think the way we go in, you got to figure out whether certain players that were meant to be mainstays, whether they fit into it or not. Because even you got the likes of Luke Shaw coming back. I think Luke Shaw is a marauding... Do you know what? Luke Shaw's meant to play like how we saw Reguilon play for the first 2 games for United. But he's not played like that for a long time. And I don't know what it is. I think it's mental with Luke Shaw. I think he picks and chooses when he wants to be his best self. Luke Shaw's, unfortunately, he's so good at football that I don't feel like he has that kind of fire in him to try. I don't think Luke Shaw's maximised his ability at United.
Do you think there's something in, like, there's seemingly an increasing trend of players who don't watch football? And supposedly Luke Shaw is one of those.
I also think that is to do with...
Like, I'm just good at it, I don't really watch it.
I also think there's some players that, because their life's been 99% football from growing up, and it still is when they're playing at professional level, when they're not playing football, they want to break from it. Yeah. I think there's some of that, but I think most players are just programmed to football's my life, so they'll just watch games as well, of course. But
I think that you're leaving some talent on the table when you do that, and some ability on the table. I think, players should be watching Monday Night Football. They should be looking at analysis. They should be watching videos on YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I know it's like when you go into training and you're doing analysis and everyone's like... Which is weird because there's a lot of sports, example American sports. I know like NBA, NFL especially, but NFL is extremely like...
Very much culture.
It's almost like chess. So...
The 400 pound
Yeah, they watch games, they watch our tendencies, they watch how people play. I don't know whether there's players that do that, but I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like players could get an extra 1-2% out of their performance every week if they took one day out to themselves to ask the analysis guy and be like, can you give me all of... I'm playing against Lucas Digne. Can you get me a clips of his last 3 games? How he plays, where he likes to receive, where he sets up. Do you know, like, what side does he struggle with defensively? Stuff like that. But I don't reckon any player does that.
I reckon there definitely are players that do that, but I think that comes from the culture that you create at a club. Maybe you have to put it on a plate from a little bit in terms of, because think about this, right? If you was Manchester United as an example, and you said, look, we want even intern, like they could afford it, but even if you were saying it's a budget issue where you can't do this, you could assign a dozen interns. If people was like, come and be a one-to-one analyst at United, you would have a queue around the fucking block for that. It's not a problem. And you say, right, here's what I want from my one-to-one analysts. I want you to work with every single player. So you give Marcus one, you give Bruno one, and it's an individual guy, and that guy just gets all of the clips from that one player, and they just show them the clips. You know, and you probably need to get some feedback from the head coach in terms of what he wants them to do, so they're not giving duff info, not saying so they're not giving it to Varane and going, you should dribble over the halfway line every time you get it, you know.
Yeah,
just madness. Or Onana. Have you ever thought about like going on a run? You could do it, you know. Like,
probably.
You probably need a little bit of guidance from first team coaches to be able to do that. But I think you should also allow those analysts to work with a player 1v1 so the player can see every single thing that they're doing. But then also, like you said, give them the opposition clips. I know Rio mentioned that he would want to be watching what the opposition striker does. Like, what's his tells before he takes a shot? So they would get like 5-6 matches of all of this guy's shots. Does he always shoot the same way?
I'm pretty sure. I think what they do is, I think they rely on Premier League level. They have analysis that probably do that for him anyway. Because I've been in first team dressing rooms before, like where they've had, for example, if we're playing against Villa, and then where everyone's sat, where whoever's starting, there'll be notes above where they're sat on their opposing player. So maybe they don't have to do it, because I think I've seen that before. I've seen that at Oldham even, like saying, "Oh, this player, what his tendencies are, what he likes to do," and I feel like the player just gets given a sheet of that, really. So, you should just know anyway. The same way if you watch enough footballers, because we talking about footballers that don't watch football. I reckon there's a lot of them just watch as much as the average fan. They can go into a game, and I think they play against each other so often and watch football so often that they probably know what a player's like anyway. I feel like
You'd hope.
I don't think a left back's going to come up against Antony and be like, ah, shit, he might go down the outside. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're going to know. So,
I think one of the reasons AVB got work originally was because he did these dossiers on opposition. I think, was it with Mourinho? Oh, they were Mourinho-esque, weren't they? That Mourinho was like, fucking hell, these are great. Full detailed analysis. And I think one of AVB's, might have been for one of the finals that he was in, got leaked. So his full sort of dossier on what to do and different shapes and times and stuff like that, and the fucking detailed stuff. And I do wonder, like, was that going on at United under Fergie? Or was it a lot more instinctual with Fergie?
I think United were just so good back then that, as you said, they didn't have to worry too much about the opposition. Do you know what I mean? Thanks, Wayne Davis. I knew I said that wrong. I was like, analyst. And I was
Ben there with the comment says, with the shape and the build-up, could we see Delo as an inverted role into midfield with Amrabat, Kassé and Casemiro, and then Shaw is the third centre-half? Yeah, and people get bogged down in the he's a midfielder, he's a left-back sort of thing. Anybody can really go and do the role when you roll in from being a fullback, or we even saw Martinez stepping up.
Yeah.
So that would potentially leave Shaw as a centre half, the other centre halves, and then he would step up into that sort of sixth position. Anyway, there are a lot of ways to do it, and you want that flexibility. You don't want it to be where the opposition go, Martinez is going to step up with the ball, so just he's not going to pass it, he's going to run with it. So just fucking smash him, like just stick with him. You know, don't let him get into that position. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do with the knowledge, but if you've got flexibility, you're unpredictable, and that unpredictability is a massive asset. Simon there says, Ten Hag said on Tuesday he doesn't talk about players not in the squad, but he didn't stand by that with Sancho. Managers lie in press conferences. Don't listen to them. Like, how many times do you have to say it? They'll say whatever they feel they need to say to get across whatever they need to get across.
He said he didn't talk about players not in his squad, but he was asked a direct question about Jadon Sancho, and he answered it. That's how I see it.
Lee says, Ten Hag bought Antony, asked to back him because he cost 80 million. He didn't buy Sancho. Antony cares. I want him in my 11. I think there is an element of truth to that in terms of like, if you give a manager 100 mil.
Antony was a Ten Hag signing, though, innit?
Exactly.
It wasn't a.
If you give a manager
signing.
100 mil and he spends that on a player and then that player succeeds or fails, that success or failure is 1,000,000% on the manager. And that manager has to defend those signings probably every time he goes to a board meeting. And he goes, I'd like 200 million because I'd like to bring in blah, blah, blah. And they go, cool, what's that money that you spent on Antony doing? And he's like, fuck's sake. Like, those snide little remarks like that will come up that and need defending in board meetings. Whereas if he's like, get rid of Sancho, no one's going to say to him, you spent 80 million on him. He'd be like, no, I didn't. Like, not my fucking player. Like, and that's where I think that you've got to have a little bit more strength in terms of the director of football. Like, the director of football needs to be like, we as a club spent 80 million on him. You're not having another 80 million for that same position, especially when we only spent that 12 months ago.
It's obvious that the best clubs now have to have the director of football and the manager in absolute unison. Because what happens now is, Ten Hag, if a manager's getting all the players he wants, that doesn't bode well for when he eventually, if he leaves or is sacked, because then he might not fit into the next.
It's got to be a blend.
It's got to be a blend.
You have to give him some of the actual exact player he wants, and you have to give him some of the profile that the club wants. You know,
because look at Tottenham now with Ange. They've got Højbjerg, who doesn't see the field. He's benched.
But he was first choice.
He was like a stonewall first team.
Well, him and Basuma have just took each other's slot.
It's a swap for under Conte. It's mad. It's just manager preference. Now Basuma's come into, and he's been like a vital player for Ange, and then he's basically been Tottenham's 1A behind Maddison this season.
So fucking good, man.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like
arguably even better.
And this is a man that couldn't get into. So it's like Tottenham signed Basuma, then they appoint Conte after it, and then he's not a Conte style player, and it's just like, if you got a club that's constantly chopping and changing managers and then they don't have a director of football, that's where the problem occurs, especially now that we're in an era where everything's so tactical, it's so systematic. It really, really does matter about whether a player fits into the way. I think back then you just buy a player, he plays right wing, he plays left wing, he plays up front. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of just, you make it work. Whereas now it's almost like chess pieces.
Yeah, so I think the game's become so much more tactical than it was previously. I think it's become extremely tactical, in a sense that it's almost people used to talk about Italian football being extremely tactical, and English football. The phrase English football was almost a bit of a diss, because it was kind of a lot more heart and like get it in the mixer and fucking win your battles kind of football, whereas. And that's probably why the Premier League is as exciting as it has been and continues to be, because the rest of the world kind of looks at Premier League football the way we look at the Championship, in my opinion at least anyway. Like, I love watching the Championship because it's fucking chaos. And I think the rest of the world looked at the Premier League versus the Spanish League, the Italian League, the German leagues, although the German league's become that itself a little bit, and just thought, fuck me, English football's chaos. But because it's chaos, it's a little bit entertaining. Like, you kind of have to watch it because anything can happen. And I think it's the influx of extremely tactical managers having success has changed the kind of the shape of English football a little bit. And what's really interesting is Spanish football was heavily reliant on, and the style of play that came out of Spanish football, heavily reliant on a Spanish guy. You know, heavily reliant on a Dutch guy, admittedly, as well. But also, you know, Pep Guardiola has influenced a lot of going on in Spain right now. Italian football, heavily influenced by Italian managers. Heavily by Italian managers. German football, heavily influenced by German managers. English football, heavily influenced by fuckers from everywhere. Like, there isn't an English manager style that has been prevalent at the top in the Premier League. There hasn't been. It's been a Scottish guy, it's been Spanish guys, it's been a German guy, it's been Italian guys. Like, it's kind of been this melting pot of all these different football cultures, which is why that you're seeing so much.
And then as soon as Graham,
tactical.
as soon as people saw Graham Potter for Brighton have a little bit of a fancy way of playing, everyone's like, yeah, he needs to be England manager straight away now. Because it's like,
it's a low bar.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like we have to wrap it up there though. I think we've gone through pretty much everything. This was meant to, I think you're getting, Steve loves this, you know. He loves getting his little, I'm important, people are ringing me while I'm on camera.
I don't like it. I mean, shit,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
doing it.
Do you know what I mean?
Anyway,
But-
I better wrap it up because I do have to go.
So, yeah, Antony returns. I don't think he'll be available for tomorrow, but he might be back for the Galatasaray game next week. I think the squad is getting stronger and stronger. I think we have Manu, whichever way you want to say it. I feel like he'll be back soon. And hopefully we can get a win and make it through and a bounce, hopefully with another clean sheet. But this has been Howson Reacts XG Files collaboration. And
Right,
we'll see you next time.
See you in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.